Hello, everybody, and welcome to our channel. I'm your host, Arti Solanki, a real estate broker and business coach, a mom, a dog mom, and multitasking quite a lot. But today is going to be a very interesting podcast here at Global Desi. Um, I'm like losing my words today, girls. I'm like, this has been a day where I am completely feeling chill. And since we do a pre-recording and this is a long weekend, I have been just relaxing all day. But welcome to our channel. And I have three young girls with me today discussing and talking about how all about mom, basically. I'm quite interested to find out what their thoughts are on how we kind of raise them or what their thoughts are or how they will raise their kids. Will they follow our footsteps or not? I don't know. It's three girls against me today. So I welcome Karishma Shelley, Reena Jasani, and Natasha Gandhi to the channel. And let's get into it, girls. And my very first question when it comes to talking about mom, when I say the word mom, it, I can just visualize my mom, like the loving, very happy, very funny person. And it's like so many things I can say about her, but also the values that she gave us, the passed down values, right? So when we say the word mom, like in a split second, what would be like the first thought that kicks into your minds? Let's start with Karishma.
So when I think of mom, the first thing that I think about, I guess, is nurture. So the care that she gives and attention she gives to us. But I would say mom expands beyond just my own mother, but the mothers who have helped raise me. So my grandmothers, both of them, my masis, my gakis, my foys, who've all raised me. I feel like they've all embodied some type of mom towards me,
That's
to me.
fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic. Rena?
Agreed. To kind of echo off of that, when I think of mom, I just think of someone who's really caring. And I think personally with my mom and with many moms that I know, they don't just care for their son or their daughter, their child. They're constantly caring for all the individuals of the family. So my dada recently moved from India, and now he's living in my former bedroom, and mom's taking care of him, trying to make sure like the food that he likes is being prepared for, and that his adjustment to living here is smooth.
Yeah, fantastic. Yep. And Natasha, I'm interested in what you have to say. That would be for me.
I don't know if the show is just like dedicated to you, mom, and that's why you have me on here. It's just so I can say nice things about you. But in all seriousness, when I think of the word mom, I think of superhero, because it seems like most moms are everywhere all at once, giving it their 100% effort to make sure that their kids or their family or their whoever it may be is taken care of. Just to echo off again off of Reena and Karishma about how it's that empathy that they kind of broadcast to everyone in their like surroundings is just something that's so overpowering when it comes to mothers that um yeah, it's just everyone's unique in their own way, but I think at the end of the day all moms kind of have uh that characteristic in them, that they're reliable, they're supportive, they're encouraging, they're just everything you want. They're comfort, right? They're just there all the time. They're there for you. So it's just your home base, like it's your person.
Yep, yep. That's so true. It's like you feel, like you said, the comfort, every time I hugged my mom, I was like, oh, no matter how much is going on in my life, but as soon as I used to hug her, it was like peace, completely felt like, I can breathe, like, literally, without even saying anything or without, none of us needed to say anything. And I still would feel, because I guess the vibrations that a mother gives, like, it's so comforting for a child. And that's just amazing. But that said, all three of you are the first generation born in out of India. So raised by Indian moms, coming from India, I meant, because you are the first generation here. How did you feel like as a kid? Was it different that the way we raised you? Was it like what was your experience? I want to know if you could remember of something like, how we were different, or were you guys like, checking the other kids like, oh my God, their parents allow this and my parents don't, or something like that, Do you recall any of those stories, Karish?
I guess it's interesting because I grew up in a predominantly Indian neighborhood where the majority of the families around me were also Indian. I mean, most people know what Edison, New Jersey is. Um, but because of that, I feel like a lot of kids were first generation Indian. And then we also had kids who were born in India and then they moved to Edison. So we kind of saw it from a different perspective where we see like kids first generation, how we're brought up a little bit differently versus kids from India who came in and were brought up a little bit differently. So sometimes I felt like there was like a divide between kids that were like, we were a little bit more like getting into American culture and like we
Mhm.
purposefully mispronounce people's names. I think that's commonly said how like first generation Indians do things like that. But I feel like our parents and to this day continue try to make sure that we have our traditions that they knew and brought over and we want to maintain it. But I think growing up we didn't really appreciate them. We wanted to be more Americanized. We wanted to do, what we wanted to do, what we saw in school and things like that. But becoming an adult and now thinking about like my marriage and all the things that we want to pass down, like I think now we're getting more into it. Like, why didn't I pay attention to when my parents or my mom was teaching us these things? Because I want to learn to so I can pass it down
That's
one
it.
day or be the mother that my mom was.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Rena, do you have a story to share?
I don't think I have a specific story, but I just remember many times my mom would talk about, oh, I didn't have this opportunity, so I want you to have this opportunity. So I think she definitely encouraged me and sometimes just signed me up for many different activities and clubs just because she didn't get the chance to do it and she didn't want me to miss out on anything. So sometimes it was stuff that I liked, sometimes it was stuff I didn't like so much, but she always just wanted to make sure that I at least tried everything. And if I didn't like it, okay, fine. But at least I got the chance to try. So like swimming, dance, tennis, like all of the different kinds of hobbies. She just wanted me to make sure I got the chance to see if I liked them or not.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. Yeah. I think we mothers kind of, I know, I remember I pushed both of my kids quite a lot doing different activities, and sometimes driving them crazy and driving myself crazy too, but Natasha would actually fill into that.
Yeah, no, I I can agree. But I'll take it a step further. Like Rena, I think my parents did the same thing. My mom really pushed us to try new things and have that opportunity to kind of expand our skill set outside of school. And one of the things being swimming. Um, I
That's a
was
really funny story though.
I was 7 years old, taking swim lessons, and I think one of the last classes was like a requirement to graduate the class was to jump off the the highest diving board into the deep end. And once I got up there, I just kind of froze. Like I didn't want to jump. I was afraid of heights. Like I was too scared. Even though the swim instructor was like right there in the water, like ready to catch us, I was just too afraid. And here comes my mom in high heels, climbs up the stairs of this diving board, walks all the way down. And I'm like, okay, in my mind, I'm like, okay, thank God, like she's coming to get me down. Nope, she just pushes me off the diving board. But, and even though it was kind of traumatizing at that point in my life, I thank her for it, because had she not pushed me, I feel like I've always been afraid of swimming in deep waters. And today, like, it's one of my favorite pastimes and hobbies is to just jump in the pool and go swimming. So I think
And I just want to remind everyone that I do not swim. So if I fell off that diving board, it would have been a disaster. But yet I was like so determined that no, if I have the fear of water, my kids are not gonna have the fear of water. So for that reason only, I was wearing a skirt. I still remember I was wearing high heels as usual, and I walked down on that diving board so scared. While walking, it was like literally like if you know the diving boards, they shake if you walk. It was shaking, and I'm like, oh God, please, please, I don't want to fall. And as soon as I walked there, and I'm like, Natasha, it's all gonna be fine. And I'm like, done.
also, mind you, this is in a YMCA indoor pool, so there's like a bunch of people there, like just watching this going on, and I'm like, came out a stronger swimmer, but still, it just
Yeah, it's funny because the instructor told me that we cannot force her. If she can't do it, then she just has to come back next week and whenever she's ready. And I'm like, heck, she's ready.
One thing that I am curious about is that, all three of us know what it's like growing up here and then having you guys as moms. But what we don't know is that your guys' experience growing up in India and then having to really grow up in a completely new area, and like you don't really know anything about
Mm-hmm.
what
It was very difficult. It was,
are here.
yeah. It was very, honestly, I can speak for myself is that it was very scary and difficult because, um, scary being a first time mom with Natasha, and even when they both the Keisha and Natasha were growing up, the constant fear of like, I hope I'm giving, I'm passing down the values. I hope I'm giving them a good cultural background, and I'm hoping. I used to take them to so many different religious places. They used to go to classes. I used to tell them all the religious stories, talk about Indian culture when they were growing up. The fear part is that I just didn't want them to feel any less than what they're surrounded by. Like, my main goal was that I didn't want my kids to feel any inferior. Like, because coming from India, we've had experiences where being a brown person, I'm talking about 25, 30 years ago, it wasn't like we were it was different. There was still racism, there was still incidents happening, and with that being said, I felt like I want to make sure that my kids felt the confidence in them, the comfort in them, and also at the same time not forget our values and cultural background. And that was mainly the big big thing for me. But other than that, raising them wise, I felt like we've in the back of your mind, as you still know like how your mom raised you, right? So it's pretty much like, okay, yeah, my mom did this. So like for me, my mom, I could go and talk to her anything. Like I could go and tell her the nastiest joke, and she'll giggle a little bit, and she'll be like, "Sharam Natyadi, you telling me this? Shameless," but she'll it was like that kind of a relationship. And I always liked that. And I always wanted that with my kids, that they could come and talk to me about anything and everything. And I think that's the kind of relationship I built with my kids. And like I said, that comes from looking at your parents, right? Like how you were raised. And so what are the things that you want to pass down to your kids? So that's kind of like the difference between the um there are some things that I might not have passed, or I probably don't even remember, but some things were like, no, this is exactly what I'm gonna do, like my mom did. So
Yeah.
that's how it is.
No, I guess that's fair, and that's I think something I've been thinking about too, because like we emulate our parents when we in a lot of things, not just like raising kids, but when there are kids in the picture, we want to emulate our parents, and also emulate our grandparents who have the most connection
Hmm.
to like back home in India and traditions and values. They have, I would say, they were the ones who kind of taught us a lot of things.
Yeah.
But as as we get older and we are our grandparents, and when we start having kids and we have to teach our kids, I guess there's a fear that what if we start forgetting? And like then we have to kind of choose like what traditions we pick. And I guess there's like a lot of homework that we should be doing now in order to start planning. I guess I don't know, it's just a fear that I
I
have, like,
think no, I think it comes naturally. That just
yeah.
comes naturally. It just I mean, hey, we didn't prepare ourselves. We didn't do nothing, and you guys turned out to be all right. So
Well, I think Karishma, are you talking more about like certain
Like,
cultures and stuff?
yeah, culturally, like traditions that we're getting taught, like certain pujas that my mom does, or like pujas that our grandparents did, like we're not going
Like,
to remember that, or we're not going to know the significance of it. So should we like start paying attention more? Is that something that we value to pass down? I mean, I think those are conversations that we need to have. Like, what parts of our parents do we want to carry forward? Yeah, like when we want to, the openness between our parents, I think that's something that comes natural. But like traditions, I think are important to who we are as well.
yeah, yeah,
I think I agree to that. But being born in America, we're gonna have mixed traditions than what they had growing up in India, right? Like I'm not gonna be looking at the Indian calendar to see which dates I can eat meat and which dates I can't. It's just not gonna happen. Like my kids are not gonna need to know that. But
Yeah.
like certain things like Diwali, like big holidays, like I would think that I would, try to keep that culture alive and well, and really like try to dive deep into the meaning behind it, even if it means like coming back to my parents, or even like researching it on my own, like the what is the meaning, the facts behind this holiday, just so that I can like inform my kids about it. I think I'd be willing to do that. I just don't think I would go into like the nitty gritty stuff that both our moms do today. Like I just I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I feel
I
like it's
think what
I'm like, you know too much. I don't think I can grasp all of that.
What were you gonna say, Reena?
I was saying, I think what also benefits us is that we're not going to be like the first uh like moms who are daughters of immigrants, because I see that like through social media there's current moms who have made like coloring books about Diwali or other kinds of toys to help their kids connect to the tradition. So I think by the time we have kids and we're raising them, there's going to be so many resources that make it easier, where we don't even have to do the research necessarily. We just have to find the right products and buy them. And I'm sure there'll be like some communities that we can join to get our kids connected.
yeah. When our kids were growing up, I used to get all these Indian books from India, and I those were like tiny little story books, and then I used to read them and tell them stories about it. And at that time, there was pretty much like no internet. It just had started, so it was like there was no resources out there, so we were the resources. But I think it also made it easy for us, is because our grandparents and our parents taught us all those stories, and we were pretty much like we've talked before, the traditions and some of the religious things that we do were passed down kind of thing, and we never question them, like why we are doing certain things. Wow, what is the purpose of it? And we just keep on doing it, and we followed the same track, and we still are doing certain things that because we were taught that way, and that's become kind of like a habit now, right? But
so similar to that though, like after you came here, you also developed new things and new cultures that you passed on to us, like celebrating Christmas. I'm sure you did not do it that way in India.
I did it in India too, because I was in a convent
not like
school.
we do it now, or Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah, no
like,
Thanksgiving, no.
Yes, like those are things that those are very, very near and dear to my heart, because I always think of those holidays as like a time for family. And that's something that I would think I'm definitely going to be passing on to my kids, but it's not something that your parents did. It's something that you did, right? So it's like coming from our generation, it's going to be the same thing. Like there's going to be some things that we take from your generation that we've learned from you guys, and then there's going to be things that we create on our own just because of the day and time and location that we're at, and just how we decide like what we want to do with our kids and what we want things to become traditions.
Yeah. I think the one thing you guys might not do what we did was giving Indian food in your lunch boxes when you were in school.
Maybe some. We'll see. We'll see. Well, I also want to homeschool.
Well, like now I think it's cooler to eat Indian food than when we were growing up. So I think now the kids would be like, oh, I want some of that.
Yeah. And I mean, like now it's more of become the Indian food also, like lunch boxes are have become like so fancy, and like all the items that you make are becoming so fancy. We didn't know all those. We would make like thepla and dokla and idli and whatever, and we used to give you guys.
I think you're on the lunchbox side of TikTok, Masi. If you're
Yeah.
the fancy lunchboxes, I don't think that's the norm.
Oh
Those
my God, that makes me feel so bad that a lot of times I see those TikToks and I'm like, shit, I never did this for my kids. I don't know how these girls have time for all these things.
I don't think any mom really did that when we were growing up. Like it wasn't like nowadays I'll go on TikTok and I see moms like cutting the fruit into like stars or like putting little like figurines, and I'm just like, who has this kind of time?
My mom would never do that. She'd be like, you're wasting that's such a waste of the fruit. Like every time I cut something, she's like, you're wasting so much.
Yeah, I mean, like Indian moms have a way with their knife skills that they get every ounce of food off of the peel, regardless of what they're cutting.
and without a cutting board.
Yes, all without a cutting board. They're directing
just over the sink
towards their thumb, but the thumb never gets cut.
Somehow. Magic.
Art, practice and art. No, but it is true. Like I see the TikTok nowadays, and I'm like, I think the most I've done is I remember sending notes, like tiny sticky notes in your lunch boxes. I used to do that sometimes, like little notes saying love you, and or maybe like, have a nice day or something like that. But I don't think I've done nothing fancy, but it really makes
thing that I remember was, I think it was like 5th grade or 6th grade. No, it was 5th grade. I got my first B ever, and I was like super upset. And so you brought me McDonald's for lunch. I think that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I think she was very obsessed about getting only A's. It's like if she got a B, it was like failing for her. And Keishan also almost got all A's, but I had to really like, he's smart, but he was lazy. And boys being boys, but she was always on the dot, like, no, very hard.
I think the difference was like, I cared more about it than you did for me, for my education. And then for Keisha, it was like he needed to be pushed. But he was like struggled. It was just that if you really wanted him to excel, you would have to like push him to like get there. But that's something like I think I would do with my kids too. Like I would want them to naturally take an interest in their education, but I would always want to like encourage them to do their best. Because because I don't want to take like a laid back approach, because I feel like that's when a lot of kids are like, like it's whatever, it's just cool.
Yeah.
Every
I
kid
mean,
has their own
It's-
personality as well. You have to like base it off of that because I feel like you and Keishan, both same parents, but like different mentalities completely. So I think you
she
have
didn't
to.
mind going to Kumon. He cried every single time he had to go to Kumon. Every single time.
I don't think anyone liked it, but
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear like y'all's thoughts on like how your mom's like kind of dealt with you guys, like in terms of education, and like how you would want to treat it with your kids.
So I think from my perspective, like I don't think my parents had to push me much in school because I think Natasha, I was more so like you, and then Roshan, my brother, was maybe he needed to be pushed a little bit more. So they were really focused on him and like trying to make sure that he had all the tools that he needed. Versus for me, I feel like I loved school. I don't know why. I was weird and I was a nerd and loved all parts of school. So I was always very excited and I don't know, I feel like I don't really remember like if there was anything specific that they had to push me for or anything like that. But yeah, I feel like it just depends on the child, like how much they need attention they need to give.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. True.
I think for me, I also liked school. I loved reading, so I didn't have to be pushed. But I did in elementary school have a problem where I would just make like really silly mistakes. Like I knew the answer, but I was just like, oh, this is easy. And I would just like race through the test and then we get it back and then we'd look at what I got wrong. And it was all just because I was like, oh, I thought that was like a 7 and it was like a 1. And so my mom was like, you need to check your work. But you know the answers. This is so dumb. You're not getting 100 just because you like raced through and then you didn't check your work. And so that really stayed with me. And like to this day, when I take exams, I check my work. And I think that's something important that I learned because
Wow,
of
That's
that's
my mom pushing
really
me.
Yeah, I did the same thing in elementary school, hence like my first B ever. But it the difference I think was like my parents never really like went over my test. I don't even think you ever really asked for my like
Yeah.
report card ever. Like it was just like, yeah, she's doing fine, like whatever. So like for me, it was like more like I was starting to get more like hard on myself to the point where it was like I was stressing myself out about like I need to make sure I'm getting good grades and stuff. So that's like one thing I want to make sure with like my kids is like I don't want to like take too much of an invested approach, but I also don't want to be like too laid back. But I want to make sure like they know like it's not the end of the world. Like if you get
And that's,
terrible,
yeah. And
I
that's
think
exactly what I did with y'all. Like, I always, even if you got a B or something, I always said that it's okay, it's fine. It's not a big deal. And the thing is that as a parent, I feel like we have to always remember that not pressurizing the kids, because you see that in India a lot. Like, parents are pressurizing their own kids so much that there are so many cases of like suicide because the kid cannot take it anymore just for a better marks of education. That's not the way to get educated. And that's, I think, the parents need to back up a little bit. I mean, yeah, we are here if you need help, but at the same time, like Natasha said, you don't have to be too laid back, but you also don't need to pressurize, traumatize your child where they feel like a death situation. That's absolutely ridiculous when you hear stories like those. So, I mean, parenting is kind of like we as a parent also grow up and learn things as a child is growing up, because we're not this is our first experience too, so we're also learning, and we probably make mistakes too. And but hey, that this is how it is. We grow together, we learn together, and that's the way it is. That's the best. We try our best for our kids, and we try our best to give you the best of the world, right? So, um, but if you had to pass down something valuable, like being an Indian, besides religion, yeah, or culture, what would be like the one very dear value for you being an Indian? What would be the one thing that you definitely want to pass it down? Like you could say, yeah, this is a absolutely no, there is no compromise in this. I am definitely giving this value to my kids.
Language.
Language, okay.
Yeah.
Courage.
At least for me, is I think that is a huge part of my identity of being an Indian. And I don't think you necessarily need to speak the language to classify as yourself as an Indian. But I think for my personal experience, like that is a large part of it, bonding with the people in my community, of like being able to speak to my elders, of like being able to understand some of the cultural things that we do. Because a lot of the explanations you get when you ask questions about your religion and stuff, they're given in your own language, right? So it's like nice to be able to understand that and take that as you go.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Girls.
Um, Natasha, I agree with you. Language is so important, and being in a family where my family's Gujarati, my husband's family is Punjabi, and there's various languages that my potential child, will be exposed to. So we're taking an active effort to so he can learn Gujarati, and I'm learning Hindi, and we want to make sure that we pass that down because it is so pivotal. But I feel like as a family, and also the family that I'm marrying into, what I've learned from their culture and our culture is how much we care for others. And that, especially like as a Gujarati family, I've seen that like it's very community building, where we're not really siloed, and we, no matter what happens, we drop everything, and we will go and help others. So I hope in my kids, besides just language, that there's this sense of community that remains. Because a lot of times I feel like America can be a very individualistic society where people really focus on, themselves. But I feel like that Indian quality in us to take care of those you loved and build that community is so strong. So I hope to pass that down.
Awesome. Yeah. Rena?
Agree with both of those too. I think probably some of my fondest memories are big family get-togethers, like around Diwali or like going to Navratri together. So I hope to pass on just making sure we experience those traditions. When I went to college, it was a little different, but my, mom and my mother-in-law now, they both always encourage us to find a way to celebrate Diwali. It doesn't mean that it's, coming back home if I'm not able to, but it could just mean getting group of friends together and just having some Indian food. Just finding time to be surrounded by people who are interested in that tradition and want to take part in it, and just thinking about what that tradition means, and having some Indian food together. So I hope I can pass that to my kids as well.
Yeah. And like you said, even for us, it was more of like for me, it was any time or any opportunity I got, I would gather family and friends and invite them over because I felt like when kids meet our own family members and they're connected with them, the love, the bond gets more stronger. And like Karishma, when initially starting out, she said that, it's not just the moms that raise the kid. And that's why it's like who you are surrounded with, right? So for me, it was very important that I always made sure that every other week it was like I had people over. I don't remember I've ever had barbecue just four of us. I've never done that, even this day. I've never done that. If I'm having a barbecue, there's going to be at least 10, 15 people here because it has to be a gathering. And for me, that was, I feel like I loved doing that. And I made sure that my kids were getting along with family. They were getting along with friends, and they learned because when they connect with others besides their own parents, they learn different things from different people. And that was very important for me, that that connection was, that's what I really loved. And I guess everybody has their own little um you know thought that how they want to raise their kids or what they want, and helping and community and everything is a big part of it. But when you guys become parents, do you think you guys will do something really different than what we raised you guys from? Like, for example, we were very at this we were somewhat strict with you guys. I would say I'm pretty sure I can speak for all the moms here, but I think we were a little bit strict with y'all, like who you're going out with, when you're gonna come home. I'm gonna track, like I would track Natasha's phone and I would know where she is and stuff, those little things. Um, do y'all think that you'll be doing the same? Because when you were kids, you definitely hated that we were really being strict. But I think now, as you're grown women, now you're married, now you're thinking about starting your family, has that been different? Like, do you see that a little differently?
Yeah, I can go first. I would say that I would still try to be like somewhat strict to my kids, but not, I don't know. I would still want them to explore their individuality and like be themselves and make friends and explore things as they're growing up. Because I've seen like a lot of instances where parents are, I'm not saying for me, definitely not me, but I'm saying for like a lot of Indian
I,
kids
I was
where the
gonna say
parents
that
were
I didn't do that.
no. I'm not talking about you, but I'm saying like in general, like I've seen a lot of Indian children first gen born here with really, really strict parents. And what ends up happening is like when they go to college and they don't no longer have that authority figure watching their every move, they tend to go a little bit crazy because of all the newfound freedom. Whereas you let us experience that like an adequate amount of freedom from an early age where we didn't feel the need to go all out crazy like 0 to 100 when we got to college. It was more of like, okay, yeah, like I have more responsibilities now, but I also get to enjoy more. But because of what I've learned from my parents allowing me to do this at an earlier age, I don't feel the need to go to a crazy extent. um but the one thing I will say that I'll do differently than what you did is the double standards. Having a brother is what really put this in perspective for me, is that you treated me in terms of like how strict you were towards me and how strict you were towards Keishan very differently. He was almost always allowed to do whatever he wanted and step out the house, like even late night at a younger age than I was. I remember one time it was only like 7:30 p.m. and I was like, Mom, can I run to the grocery store to get ice cream? And it was a hard no. She was like, it's too late to step outside. I was like, what? I'm going down the street for ice cream. But yeah, it's just like small things like that. Like they didn't make sense. So
I
I
didn't
think
even
that's one thing.
realize I didn't even realize that I had done that.
Yeah, that was ingrained into my memory. I was like, what the heck? Because then I would always see Keishan. Like once he got his permit and license, he was allowed to like go on dates and go hang out with his friends. And I'm like sitting here at home, not allowed to do that. So I think that's one thing I would try to do differently. I know moms and dads are more protective of daughters, but I think I would try my best to treat, if I have a boy and a girl, try to treat them the same.
Yeah, I think this is kind of what I was getting at in my earlier question about, raising us when you grew up in India and then now being in another country. I think there's a fear that your generation had about the unknown of,
Mm.
when your kids grow up in this area, like what do I need to be strict with versus what I don't need to be strict with. And so a lot of us have grown up with very, very strict parents. And then we have to find our footing. I mean, I feel very lucky because with you guys, you gave us freedom in the sense that you let us do everything that, like, in front of you. My dad would always say, like, do it in front of me, don't do it behind my back. So when we were getting introduced to alcohol, he would be like, here, take a sip, like, do it in front of me, don't do it behind my back. So it became a little bit more comfortable to be open with them. But like, I know a lot of kids who they've had very, very strict parents because it comes from fear. They don't, you guys, I feel like they don't, you wouldn't know like what to be strict with or what we don't need to be strict with.
Mm.
So I feel like now growing up in this country, knowing like what could or what could not happen, knowing, going through college here, going through different experiences here, I definitely want to be strict and, in certain areas, but also know, where I could let them develop their own individuality and things.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think my dad was like similar to yours, Karishma. Like he was like, you want to have alcohol? Have it here at home." I was like, "Not really where I would drink, Dad, but okay." But and then I similarly saw like when we'd go to college, my friends who had really strict parents and never had alcohol, they were the ones who went a little overboard.
Yeah.
Nothing major I can think of that I would do completely differently. Except I just know we kind of talked about it earlier. My mom is more religious than I am, so I probably just wouldn't. I don't know. She'd like come into my room and like have spices in her hand and like put them over my head and then like have to flush them down my toilet or something. I don't know. I just probably wouldn't do that, but I'd still want the best for my children. Or I'd be thinking it. I just wouldn't do that particular tradition.
That's funny because we were talking about it the last time because I do similar things to them. That saves you from the evil eye, right? And I do want to correct myself when I introduce you all is it's not Reena Jasani, it's Dr. Reena Jasani, and I just said Reena Jasani, so I just want to say that. We're very proud of you, Reena. But
Thank you.
yeah. So being that said, it's been interesting show, and I'm very kind of like how do you say, as a mother, I feel like you guys are gonna be fantastic moms too. And not just because I wouldn't brag myself that we raised you right, but we did. But but also I think you guys have a very good you guys have put a lot of thought to it as a parenting. What are the things that you want to do and not do with your kids? Whereas for us, like I said before, it was not like we discussed about something like, oh, how we want to raise our kids. Do we want to talk in Gujarati or not? Do we want to do this or not? It was no discussion about it, like, right? So it was like me raising the kids while he was working. And so for seeing you guys talking about it, discussing about it, working together how to raise the kids, is it makes me so happy. And I know for a fact that you all will be amazing parents and will do amazing, and you all will be fantastic moms for sure. And with this, I guess we'll end our podcast today. Love to all the moms out there. And I just want to say that, like Natasha said, y'all are superheroes. And each mom has their own superhero, I guess, powers to raise their kids, to deal with everyday things that we come across, because it's not just about feeding them or giving values or cultures. It's a lot of things come along the way, like, staying up all night when they're sick, or worrying about their school, or what are they going to wear, or what are the activities going to do. There's so many, so many, so many things. And I just want to say that to all the moms out there, lots of love. Feel proud of everything that you're doing, and you all are doing a fantastic job. And that's all for today. Thank you, Natasha, Reena, and Karishma, for joining us. And we will see you all next time. Until then, this is Arti Solanki at Global Desi Women. Thank you, ladies. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.